Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News website. We have our one of our sponsors, website sponsors, is on because they had some really good news. Before I introduce them, what excites me about this project is it's in Nevada, and it is gold and copper. I'm very bullish on gold. I'm very bullish on copper. And yet this company still has a very reasonable valuation of only $52 million. And both of these gentlemen, Ken McNaughton and Joe Ovsenik, hope I got that right, have been around the block for a long time. They were with Pan American Silver for a long time, and then they were architects of the success of finding and building a mine for Premier Gold, which has recently been part of a takeover. So thank you very much for joining me, Joe and Ken.
How are you today, Allan?
Hi, Allan.
Well, you had some really good news, and I'm going to put it up on the screen here so we can talk about it. There it is. All right, guys. Well, right off the bat, the news is quite compelling. Reports completion of a resource estimate for wholly owned Gabs project located in Nevada. It's the 2022 mineral resource estimate. It's an update of previous work. The gold equivalent and has been increased and upgraded, and you're getting a better understanding of the geological controls of the gold and copper mineralization. I think that's some very important stuff. So let's get on it, guys.
Sounds good.
Where do you want to start?
Well, I'll just jump in. I just want to point out the headline number. Not only did we increase the resource, like, if you lump everything together from 1.84 million ounces to over 2.7 million ounces of gold equivalent. What's really nice is we now have over 1 million ounces, 1.12 million ounces of gold equivalent in the indicated category. So, that's something you can actually put a mine plan around and keep moving forward. So quite excited about that. And also the fact that these numbers went up a lot, even though we increased the cutoff grades for the oxide and the sulfide significantly. We increased the cutoff for the oxide from 0.24 grams per ton gold equivalent to 0.35 grams per ton gold equivalent. And for the sulfide from 0.3 to 0.35 grams of gold equivalent. So, those are big increases in cutoff grade, and you still see this real uptick on the resource estimate. So you put all that together, we're quite pleased with the results.
Well, I think there's some other key points to make. One, you're in a super low cost jurisdiction for production. Secondly, absolutely, that you are, this is in the oxide zone, which is low cost production and what makes up all the mines in Nevada. But you look at the grade, and you're right in the ballpark there, maybe even a little bit better than some of the current mines. That's got to excite you, Ken and Joe, quite significantly.
Oh yeah, the economics on this look really promising. And the cutoff grades were being driven by work that Kappes Cassidy is doing for us as part of their met work. So we're really comfortable with those numbers, and they may even still be a bit conservative. So there's lots of upside here still, and I think this really shows the potential of what we can do at Gabs.
Yeah, just jumping in on that. Like, this is just an interim resource update based on our 2021 drilling, and the focus of that drilling was mostly the Sullivan zone. So we have 4 known zones on the property, plus our mapping and samplings come up with a lot of other prospects we want to drill. So there is a lot of potential to go higher than this 2.7 million ounces.
Yeah, I think that was very evident in our last conversation we had when we talked about the zones and the mineralization, Ken.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We really were just getting in, testing the waters at Sullivan and a little bit at Carbody, and we're getting very comfortable with the geology and seeing the potential. We've also completed that MT survey. So the phase 2 of that, we've got some deeper targets. So we'll have to permit some pads, but we can fire a hole at least one of the anomalies with this program. But we think we're understanding or see where possibly the source of all this is. So a lot of potential on the surface zones. And then also the big blue sky is the source porphyry at depth.
And I hope there's the closing part of that first paragraph is that you're getting a better understanding of the geological controls of the copper and gold mineralization. I think that that's quite exciting. I mean, a lot of people talk about that, but you guys have done it before. So, you know, you're well versed in that understanding of those geological controls, and it's quite exciting for your near surface stuff, as well as chasing that porphyry.
Yeah, absolutely. So trying to understand the system and piece it together. And you know, this part of Nevada is complicated because there's all that late stage extension that chop things up. So it's understanding what belongs where, what's driving the mineralization. And we really got a good handle on that with that first program, particularly around Sullivan. Lots of work to do at Carbody and Gold Ledge and Lucky Strike still, but it's all coming together. And you know, that along with the geophysics is really pointing us to some exciting areas.
You know, in our last conversation, one thing that really stood out to me was the that near surface potential to connect zones, let alone chasing the porphyry, which is probably the plumbing system that brought all this mineralization. Can you touch on that a little bit, guys?
Yeah, for sure. All of the zones are sitting there and they're pretty much open. You know, we see where the geology is sort of daylights and we lose the systems, but in understanding the ore controls, we then go and look for those features elsewhere. And we have a lot of surface showings, particularly south of Lucky Strike, kind of Lucky Strike over to Gold Ledge and heading down towards Carbody. There is a huge number of showings there. All of which are kind of pointing us to the magnitude and size of the system. So by being able to understand the mineralization and the ore controls in the known areas, we can step over to these other areas and then start hopefully piecing them together and connecting the dots.
Yeah, and another thing on your presentation, if folks look at the zones and a couple of those zones on the western side are pretty underexplored. And also you've got, even though they're on the eastern side, I hope I didn't get my east and west mixed up there, but you've drilled in some areas that there was more drilling, but in the areas you've drilled are kind of good step outs.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The old timers were really looking for surface oxide. You know, one company for gold, one for copper. But as soon as they started getting deeper or looking at the extensions, they stopped. So definitely Sullivan's open, Lucky Strike's open, Carbody really is not well defined. Gold Ledge has barely been touched. There's been you know, mostly just a few real short holes in there. And then all of these other showings that we're seeing around the area haven't been touched. So there is a lot of potential there for us to take a stab at, you know, build up this resource, you know, and then put the system together while we're looking for that deep target as well.
And in it, this is basically the culmination of your work last year. You're drilling right now. So let's talk a little bit about what the focus is of that current drilling and any insights you can give us so far.
Yeah, so we had some follow-up work to do at Sullivan. So we got in there first, banged that off. We wanted to test car body ore control. So we did a few holes there. And then now we're really focused on Lucky Strike because, you know, that's the of the current resource, that's half of it is sitting over there. I guess 40% yeah, now is sitting on at Lucky Strike. So we wanted to get over there and start fleshing it out more and you know, well, it's drilling and we're going. So that's, we can't say anything other than, you know, we're drilling.
Good. So if my memory serves me correct, there's the two on the eastern side have been where most of the drilling was done. And it looks like they could connect at surface or in the near surface target, but then following it deeper for looking for the porphyry, that could get very exciting. Where do you stand on those efforts?
Well, right. Well, before we started getting deeper, we wanted to run the geophysics because you can spend a lot of money and time, you know, chasing down these things. So we are looking at how things extend. We have tested Sullivan at depth. Or looking for the down dip extensions a bit. That's with the current drilling that's in the lab right now. And then I think you're talking about car body, and I don't know that those will connect, but there certainly is some satellite deposits between them that were part of the historical drilling. You know, we haven't permitted any of those areas right now, and some of these areas we can deal with amendments to the existing permits, and then, but we're likely going to need the bigger plan of operation permit in order to get in and test some of these other areas. Because we're just going to run out of disturbance, or the two licenses are going to be too close to each other. So we've got some limitations on permitting right now, but you know, the BLM has been very supportive of us. We don't see a major hurdle getting amendments or a bigger plan of operation approved.
Yeah, we're working on the plan of operations. The plan is to get it filed this year. And right now, just to sort of explain where we're at, is we're operating on two of these notices of intents, which allow up to 5 acres of disturbance. One covers Lucky Strike. The other one covers Sullivan and Car Body. And so they're more than 2 miles apart. And so we have two separate permits. But because of that, we can't drill in between the two at this point in time.
But that looks like it's something you should be able to clear that hurdle fairly easily.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
And we'll look to get that filed this year. It will actually, hopefully within the next 3-4 months, we'll get that plan of operations filed for approval. So not expecting any issues with it.
So I think, you know, on the exploration side of it, you guys have learned a lot. You've grown the resource. You're getting a better handle on the geological structures. You're drilling. So it looks like there's going to be a lot of news flow coming up in the next number of months.
Yeah, well, the labs, we're thinking it's about a 2-month backup right now. So, you know, we've been drilling since January. So say, you know, starting into March, early April, we should start seeing drill results, and those should flow for a month, 2 months. And then as those are working through the system, we've got our ZTEM survey planned for BAM up north, and that'll happen May, June. And then the drilling will start up in BAM in July. So it's going to be busy straight through now for the next number of months.
Speaking of the delays in the labs, being down in Nevada, I know that one of the big problems with labs is the preparation of your material for assaying. Is it probably a little bit better down in Nevada than it is up in British Columbia, I would imagine, or Newfoundland, where they're just cramming the labs with samples to process?
Yeah, Newfoundland's bad. But you know what, Nevada, while drill rigs have freed up a bit, you know, last year it was impossible to get a drill, which means the labs were getting overwhelmed. Reno is currently at 2 months turnaround time for their just sample prep. We've been driving the extra 2.5 hours each way going to Elko, and there we're getting a month on our sample prep. And then once it's prepped, it's another month in the lab. So and it's not showing any signs of lighting up. The labs had huge backlogs as everybody worked later than normal. And then the drills were right back turning again in January. So there's just not going to be any relief. Usually this time of year they get caught up and things aren't too bad, but no relief this year at all.
Well, I don't, this is a little bit off topic, but I'm down here in Mexico and Zacatecas. We have labs everywhere. And one thing I've found is the sample prep gets done very rapidly, matter of a week or two. Have you guys, I know you had a lot of experience in your, I named it wrong earlier. It's Silver Standard you guys were involved with.
Yeah.
Pan American's the enemy,
Well,
but
that's
yeah.
right. That's right. Yeah.
Sorry about that, but you guys have a lot of experience down here in Mexico. Is there any consideration to send some samples down here to Zacatecas area and get them prepped a lot faster?
You know, Allan, we looked into that. We looked very hard, and the issue is getting the samples from Hawthorne down to the border. And basically, you know, then you run into trucker shortage. There's nobody to take the samples down. But yeah, ALS, who's doing our assaying, you know, they have 5-7 day turnarounds in Sonora right now. Hermosillo, but you know, we can't get the samples down there. We're having a hard time finding groups to take the samples up to Elko. So it's just this, the labor crunch, everything is conspiring against this happening. And I'm afraid it's the tide. You know, we generally don't accept this. We're able to work around the system, but the system's overwhelming us right now.
Okay, well, that actually leads up to the final topic I wanted to talk about. And this is sort of on a series of questions relating to the business end of things. One is, how are things going with the cash position, Joe?
Well, we're funded for our drill program now down in Gabs, and we're fully funded to take on BAM and drill 10,000 meters this coming summer. We're looking at what else we'll need as we move things forward here. So the programs are fully funded, and we're looking at our options on dealing with the other financial issues we got coming up.
Okay, so then let's switch over to the metal side of things. You know, one of the drivers of gold is inflation. And a couple of the drivers of inflation these days are exactly what Ken was talking about, which is supply constraints, moving things around all over the world. Inflation is a worldwide phenomenon. You know, there's been a lot of talk about the Fed's gonna taper and try to combat inflation with rising interest rates. I'm pretty skeptical of that. They've not done any of their tapering of their balance sheet. Plus, you know, they start tagging on interest rates, and that's going to slow economic growth. And that combination of slowing economic growth and inflation is a horror story for the politicians and the Federal Reserve. Plus, you've got them painted into a corner with, you know, just out of control debt growth. Things are really transpiring for a higher price of gold. So not only do you guys have the catalysts of the work you're doing, it looks like things are going to get more optimistic for gold in the near term as well, Joe.
Yeah, look, yeah, we agree with you. I think gold's in for a nice run over the coming years, and as well as copper. You know, you spoke a bit about copper at the outset. I think we're incredibly well positioned to take advantage of the upside we're going to see in gold, as well as in copper between Gabs and BAM, both of which are gold, copper, and have potential for big size. So, you know, it's you know, timing's everything, but we seem to be in a good spot here.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's going to start to come to fruition in the next couple months when people realize that the Federal Reserve can't really raise interest rates too much, so they got to let inflation go, and that's going to be very good for gold.
Yeah, no, I think gold's going to be well, you have a lot of people talk, even Goldman's talking positively about gold. So, you know, when they're behind it, that's always a positive.
Well, and you touched on another important factor, and that is copper. I'm tremendously bullish on copper. You know, a day doesn't go by we don't hear about more car makers wanting to build electric vehicles. Plus, there is you know, you got to build the infrastructure to get that energy to those electric vehicles. And you look at the cupboard of copper projects out there, and there just aren't enough. So having something exciting on the copper front gives you that, you know, two-punch combination.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, you know, there were low metal price years, and so you didn't have the exploration. It's just like with gold, you didn't have the exploration, so you don't have a big inventory of projects sitting on the books that can quickly come online. And the nice thing about Gabs is that, you know, we're looking at it. We'll get the PEA out targeted for the end of this year, and you're going to see that this thing is going to be able to get up to speed and actually get into production pretty quickly. And so that would allow us to take advantage of the upside in the copper price.
You know, guys, it blows me away that, you know, we hear all about these efforts to move into electric vehicles. But what blows me away is that I don't think investors or even the car makers really get the concept of how tight supply is of copper. Currently, there's only 3 days of demand in the inventories worldwide for copper. If we were to see a strike in Chile, you know, that would drive copper just ballistic.
Yeah, and you know, you speak about the car makers, but I think when you step back, it's the guys, you know, the politicians and everybody else who are really pushing hard on, you know, the electrification of vehicles, who don't seem to understand that you need materials, not copper, lithium, and whatever else. So all these battery metals, as well as I think copper, it sort of transcends everything. You need these metals to go ahead, and at some point they're going to wake up to this fact, and they'll be pushing for more production.
At one time, a little before my career, I'm still a little young for that, but there was a time when oil companies were very involved in mining. And it wouldn't surprise me to see some of these car makers need and get into copper mining, lithium mining, and exploration.
Well, they're already on the lithium side. There's a lot of projects are being funded by Tesla, and I think some of the other auto manufacturers are funding the lithium exploration. But they haven't seemed to put their toe in the water on the copper side yet.
No, and I think it's coming, guys.
Yeah,
That wouldn't surprise us.
yeah, no, it's there's a big crunch coming.
Well, you guys are involved in copper and I'm involved in lithium down here in Mexico. Maybe we should get together and we can bring in some car makers to be our partners.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, I love Zacatecas, so I'll be telling you, call a board meeting, Allan, and we're there.
Well, I got to get you on my board first, Ken. Then you're more than welcome to come down here.
Oh, fantastic.
Sign them up.
Yeah, it's a pretty special place for the geology and the costs and the mineral endowment. But it's very similar to Nevada. You know, that's the same kind of story you guys got up there in Nevada.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are these precious spots in the world where, you know, for no other explanation, the finger of God just put an incredible bounty of minerals.
Well, you guys, did I forget to ask you anything?
No, I think
No.
I think you covered the gamut here. You know, look at gold, copper, and Gabs is right in the middle of it.
And we didn't really even touch too much on what you guys got going up there in northern British Columbia. And, you know, you're two guys that had a lot of experience up there. One of the big success stories is Pretium. Pretium, you guys helped find and build it. And now you've got another kick at the can up there. Maybe let's brush quickly on that because, you know, that's not too far away from maybe getting some geophysical work done and then drilling.
Absolutely. So we'll be geophysics get going May, June. Get that, and as soon as the snow's backs off enough, we're going to get a camp in there in June, and then come July, we've got the drills lined up. So we've got a drill lined up, we've got a helicopter lined up. So the program's getting planned and ready to go. It's just, you know, waiting for a little bit on the weather side.
Yeah. And it's a pretty simple exploration story. We've got to follow up the surface drilling we did, stepping out on that. We have a lot more high-grade soil targets. So we think we can really flesh out that surface mineralization and the whole source of the system. That's a pretty simple concept that we're hoping that geophysics is going to point us to. So we've got a number of areas near surface and looking for the source. And I think it's going to be a very exciting summer.
Yeah, and as you've mentioned in the past, you were always focused on that contact where we hit the 7.3 grams per ton gold over 9 meters. So we'll just step back and follow that down as well and see what that takes us to.
That's right.
Well, it points to me for a couple of reasons. One is that contact is probably the conduit of how the mineralization got up there. But another thing I'm always looking at is continuity and being able to predict where to drill, and that is all pointing in the right direction there.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty simple story. We just need to execute and hope our interpretation's right.
Well, that's a good final point for me to bring up. You know, I do a lot of these interviews and I try to stick to good people, and with Joe and Ken, you've got two guys that this is not their first rodeo. You know, they spent a lot of their career with Silver Standard and then Pretium, finding and building mines. And now they've got their sleeves rolled up in Nevada, soon to be followed by the Golden Triangle, where they've had their successes in the past. So, you know, I think that that's something to factor in for investors as well. And, you know, as I started by saying, you guys have a very modest valuation still.
Look, there's lots of room just to get up to what's fair value. There's a lot of room for our share price to run. 50 million with a market cap Canadian with you know, a project like Gabs, let alone the potential at BAM, it is really undervalued. I know everybody says they're undervalued, but you know, from what our experience, we've been in the business, we've got a lot of gray hair. We feel this is very undervalued.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of people say that, Joe, but not a lot of people have the pedigree you guys do. So I think that comes with a little more oomph to it.
Oh, appreciate
Yeah,
that.
thanks.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to close it off here, guys, and then we'll have a little chat at the end. How's that?
Sounds like a
good.
plan.
So there you go, folks. These guys are doing some very great work. 2021 at Gabs was I think, a major breakthrough. You're now seeing the ramifications of that with the increased resource. And that resource, don't forget, is in the oxides, and it's been upgraded. Those grades are the kind of things that makes Nevada mines. So they've got a great thing going at Gabs. They're also drilling right now. So that's a major source of future catalysts. They have also got their situation up in BAM in the Golden Triangle, where they've had a lot of experience. That's another catalyst. So it looks like you've got a 2022 of great catalysts and still a very reasonable market valuation of $52 million with guys that have done this before for most of their career. So I think that, as always, I say my shows are for information purposes only. It's important for you to speak with your financial advisors and do your homework. And I think if you do your homework, check out their website. You can see on the screen share that they make the corporate presentation, their fact sheet, their Gabs and their BAM presentations, very easy for you to look at. And I think you'll see a lot of exciting stuff in there. So do your homework and stay tuned for a lot of shows with these guys, because I can see a great runway of catalysts. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.